Hey guys, Infidel1258 here. Today I'm going to share with you a clip from a recent live event wherein I'm going to have a conversation with Tales from the Cryptmancer about his ideas around Modern League rank rewards. Are they too high at the highest levels? What about glint and what about energy and what about ratings inflation due to liquidity bots? There's a lot of conversation pieces that we need to get right, and I'm not sure we entirely have dialed them in. So I want to do a little push and shove with Tales from the Cryptmancer so that we can hopefully drive the conversation forward in a constructive way. I hope that you'll stick around for this one and let someone know about the video, guys. Thanks a lot. Have an amazing day. God bless. Tales from the Cryptmancer dropped a hot takes video 3 days ago, and he talked about liquidity bots among other things. Ratings inflation is a piece of it, buying energy, survival mode, and more. I would love. I'm going to comment on this a little bit, and so first things first, go watch his video. He's an insightful content creator himself, and I have a lot of respect for Tales and how he covers things, especially since, as he points out in this video, he is not one that sort of holds back a controversial take, and some people probably don't like him for that. But I respect him for that. He's going to say what he believes, and I might not necessarily agree with what he has to say, which is going to be the case in this conversation. But, I still respect that somebody out there is covering those things. If it was all people saying, if a conversation, this is what I like to say about difficult conversations. If we don't have difficult conversations, we can't really learn from one another. It's like, that's not how I usually say it, but I'm struggling to remember the exact words of how I would often say this. But it's like, if you feel differently than I do, and we don't talk about this thing, how are either one of us might be wrong? And shouldn't we want to strive after truth? And shouldn't we want to grow? And shouldn't we want, I personally do. And so I'm not afraid of getting into a conversation with somebody who disagrees with me. In fact, I see it as an opportunity possibly for me to learn something that I wouldn't have otherwise seen. And if you look at the world, in a totally different way than I do, it's quite likely we're going to come together, maybe in friction, but also probably in benefit to both of us, maybe. And so that's how I see these sorts of conversations. And I want to use that as sort of a starter to this conversation, because I'm not going to agree with Tales in a lot of what he has to say. And I don't want to take away from what he covers in this video. You should go see it. It's only an 18-minute video, and it's full of, I want to say, meaningful critique. That's probably the best way for me to put that. But, for the sake of conversation here with you, I want to say, in case you didn't see, and I will clip this video later too, by the way, because I think this conversation merits, a broader attention. And I think so does Tales. He says so in this video. He thinks more of us should be talking about this, and so let's talk about it. He makes the argument, and I'm not trying to minimize his argument, but I need to communicate it really quickly here. 10 or 30 seconds, I'm going to try and say, Tales makes the point that the Modern League is really in trouble. And actually, I saw a comment pop through on my community board. M. Papadero says, Modern is totally dead. 2 USD every 15 days to play the Wild. One of the biggest mistakes of my life, this game. So, M. Papaderos is salty about Splinterlands generally because he feels Modern is dead and Wild is too expensive. So the conversation is who's playing and what's the value proposition for playing. And I think the idea that Modern is dead is wrapped up in the conversation around liquidity bots, because Tales wants to make the point that, as we well know, there maybe isn't enough people playing the game at this moment. And so we've come to a conclusion that liquidity bots will enable players who are playing to enjoy the game. That's been an approach of Splinterlands, and in doing that, he formulates a very strong argument that there is ratings inflation, meaning you climb higher than you otherwise would because you're playing against opponents who are bots. I cancel that and pull up my season activity, and he's probably right. I've squeezed in higher than I regularly might have otherwise. And he cites, I think, 2 examples. There's one I really remember, Kezrin. Kezrin is the player that he really references, and he's like, like 3 days or 5 days into the season, he was at 7,500 RP or something. So he's like double my RP, and that's crazy. And he wants to, he talks about how many energy Kezran has purchased, and he talks about how, you know, the SPS returns for that account. And he makes the point that, you know, he asked the question, is it good for Splinterlands that we are selling energy to these people so that they can play as many games as they do, so that they can extract as much SPS as they are able? And he makes the point that, you know, he uses the word exploitative, that he asking the question more than making the accusation. Like, is this exploitative? Is this an exploit within the game? Was this an error by the development team? Is this a mistake that needs to be corrected? And I think his conclusion largely is that on some level, whether it was a mistake or not, it needs to be tweaked. I think that's the best way I can summarize his full conversation or argument. He's critical of the payouts within Modern League in particular, Survival League also. And he says, you know, these rewards at the highest levels are too meaningful, and it needs to be deeply considered, looked at, maybe even revised. He says other things. He makes the point that maybe we shouldn't even sell energy. But here's the thing that I want to say, because, you know, it seems to me that there really is a criticism that is worth levying at Splinterlands to say that, you know, there isn't enough participation in the game at the highest levels, which leads to lack of liquidity, which leads to difficulty in finding matches. And when you do find matches, fair matches. And so if that's the case, liquidity providers or accounts that are created with fake cards, because they're just fake ghost cards, that then play me to create liquidity to enable me to play the game at whatever league level I'm playing at. The highest levels are problematic, and probably, you know, so are other levels, depending on the time of day you're playing. And so I see a lot of logic in why we would offer those liquidity pots. But then it's an interesting criticism, and it's a worthwhile critique to say, well, if they're pushovers, that's a problem, because it then is just SPS farming. But I have two main points I want to raise. And this is my conversation with you guys, and maybe with the community who will hopefully later watch this video. I think if the highest league levels are quote unquote exploiting the game by receiving massive SPS payouts, 75 SPS per win at the high, when you're at 7,800 RP or whatever, plus 6,000 glint or whatever per win. Again, all the exact numbers are in Tails' video. It's like a 50-cent reward in terms of SPS, plus it's enough glint to buy you another energy. And a 70% win rate, that's what these guys are playing at. You go, well, you're going to just buy all the energy that you can possibly. Of course you are. But is my first question or critique to that conversation is like, why is it a problem if the highest accounts in this game are trying to play the game more to get more out of the game? We're not talking about somebody who's put $10,100 or let's say $100 or $1,000 or even $10,000 into the game. I want to show you Kezran's account. So I come into my cards and I can look up Infidel 1258, which, by the way, I'm at $24,000. Like I'm not a lightweight in terms of card assets in this thing. But look at Kezran. Look at this number. This should boggle your mind. Bro has almost $500,000 in NFTs in the Splinterlands ecosystem, and that's not including land. Like, land is not wrapped up in that number. This is his card assets. If I just look at summoners, just to like bring that sort of data down to earth where we can maybe glean some sort of reality in this, he has $38,500 worth of summoners. If I just go to modern, he has $17,300 worth of modern summoners. What's my point? This man has $500,000 in cards in Splinterlands. Why are we looking at him and mentioning the word exploit or exploitative? And I don't think Tails by no means was trying to throw shade. It was like a conversation that is worth having about the topic of where's a reasonable line in the sand for what is reasonable rewards at those highest levels. And I think he wants to make the point that if they can pay for free energy through glint, if a win gives them enough glint to pay for another win, then they're going to keep going, and they're going to keep going. And that's going to be a recipe for them to really extract maximum SPS. But I think isn't it good that we get players who want to hold $500,000 worth of card assets in a game like this? Is that good or is it bad? It's got to be good. We want people to buy these things, or there's never going to be somebody who's going to buy it from us. That's the thing. Don't we want people who see deep, meaningful value in ownership of card assets? Yes, of course we want that. And so then we want maximum reward potential for the greatest ownership of card collection, as well as the greatest talent behind that card collection. It absolutely, rewards should be based upon your investment within the game and your talent within the game. If it is not connected to or commensurate with those factors, then there's no logical utility to the assets, and that would undermine what Splinterlands is itself. The reason, the justification, the excitement about this thing. And so I would argue people like Kezrin, or even like you, who maybe you have $100 in the game or $1,000. That's awesome. That's a meaningful investment to somebody, and you should receive rewards that are commensurate to it. The reasonable question I hear Tails and maybe you asking, 75 SPS per win plus glint enough to buy new energy, isn't fair. It isn't maybe commensurate, you would argue, with. And I go, that's worth talking about, but man, I consider it in poor taste to suggest it's an exploit when it's that sort of party, that sort of player, that sort of person who's being sort of held up as an example. My next point on that would be, how many accounts are we talking about that are able to do that? Is it one? Is it just Kezrin? Is it 100? Is it 1,000? I mean, an exploit isn't an exploit when a guy has to spend $500,000 to take advantage of the system. That seems crazy to me. I wouldn't call it an exploit. Now, he only spent 15 minutes on this topic, and I want to be fair. I've already spent more than that. So I want to say, I bet there are more. Is it 10? Is it 20? Is it 50? There is a line in the sand where I would say, yeah, we probably should revisit this. And that's why I say it's a fair conversation. But we also have to remember the idea that they can buy more energy is a beautiful thing. It's that when people want to play the game more and more and more should be our desire. We shouldn't want to cap people's engagement with this game. That makes no sense. Now, if the rewards are out to lunch, and 75 does seem like a lot, but I'll tell you, with my $24,000 deck, not all of which is in modern, when I win, I'm getting 20 SPS. Look at this win right here. So look, that's 20 SPS for $24,000 worth of cards. And again, not all of them are in modern. If I was to look at my account, I bet it's only $10,000 worth of modern cards. Is 20 SPS for 10 grand fair and commensurate? Where is that line in the sand, and who do we want to call an exploiter? Is it only those who are buying energy? Are we arguing that you shouldn't be allowed to buy energy? Why are we capping people's involvement and investment? It almost to me sounds like we're just frustrated that others are gaining more. And I'll point us back to 2021. Maybe this will be my last note on this conversation before I check in with the chat. In 2021, we were seeing rewards where like $20 a day, $30 a day was possible because of the DEC rewards. There was still a time where we were being paid DEC to play the game. And it was also while airdrop points were happening for SPS. And that was important because DEC had an airdrop point value. So people were collecting DEC and just holding it and not spending it. And the way DEC was printed, I won't give you the fullness of this, but it was algorithmic, and it was algorithmically inflated, which affected the more of it there was, the more expensive it got. And the idea was that it would entice people to spend it into non-existence, and that would reduce the number. And so it didn't need to be created more. Oh no, I'm actually misquoting that a little bit. It was like, anyways, I don't need to fully explain algorithmic inflation. But suffice it to say, you could make 20 or $30 a day playing the game at like a Diamond League level. And you know what I didn't hear a lot of at that time? I didn't hear a lot of, man, this sucks. I heard a lot of like, wow, this is life-changing, this is crazy. And I'm asking myself the question today, as I reference my own account and what I'm able to earn with my cards, it's like, where is the line in the sand for what's a reasonable payout? And, back when I was benefiting in 2021 in a meaningful, crazy way, I wasn't so concerned about what the highest league levels were doing. But by the way, they were crushing it. And so I kind of do wonder if our critique isn't, this system is non-functional or, let's say, non-optimized, but our critique might just be, it's not optimized for me. And that makes me frustrated, because it's like, and Tails does even talk about this. Like, he admits, like, within the survival context that, he is one of the beneficiaries of how survival works, and he'll get, he'll be able to mint a lot of SPS out of playing that, and other people won't. And he says, it's good for me, but I don't know if it's good for the game. And I go, I feel like this is, and it's a worthwhile conversation. And we probably should from time to time, like, check and see where these, how the reward incentives are. But I also think we have to hold that tension lightly, or that we have to hold that loosely, because we definitely want this game to be rewarding, meaningful rewarding. And I would argue for a $500,000 investment, 50 cents on a win is not meaningful. But bro likes the game. He believes in the thing long term. And so I don't consider that an exploit. What do you think? Am I wrong? I'm definitely going to clip this later, because I think this conversation merits more attention. Yeah, love to know what you guys think. And shout out to Tails. Go check out his full video. Make sure. Tails, there he is. Good to see you streaming. Thanks, man. Thanks for coming through. And I don't know where you're at in the live, but I talked about your video on the hot takes for liquidity bots, ratings, inflation, buying energy. And, I encourage you I'd love for you to listen to what I had to say, and, drop a comment, or even throw back like a return video. I think we need to, we absolutely need to dial in payouts in a way that makes sense, but we also need to be careful about nerfing incentives to those who are putting in $500,000 for cards, because Kezerin was one of the accounts you referenced, and or maybe the main account you referenced, and I looked up his set, dude. That guy is deep in this game. $500,000. And I even went like this, because I was like, is this just rented cars? Is Buddy just a big renter? Because I don't know who Kezerin is. Owned. Using the filter owned. He owns $483,000 worth of assets. And so, yeah, man, just love to hear your thoughts. And I know you can engage here now too, by the way, if you want. And if you do, I'll respond. But I'm looking forward to hearing you speak into that, because I think the conversation is bigger than, is 75 SPS per win too much at the highest levels? Is glint being, when you can buy a free energy every time you win, is that a problem within the game? Is a more complicated question than, like, it's a free energy 7 out of 10 times. That seems to be like maybe your presumption, but I would argue that there has to be the added factor of, like, what does it take to get 7 wins out of 10? Like, that's yes, you're right. There's some ratings inflation, and the bots are a bit of a pushover, but how about we make the bots better? How about we make the liquidity bots excellent? If XBot is as good as it is, why are these SPL liquidity bots ineffective? What's going on there? Because I think that's a bigger conversation, because maybe the issue isn't ratings inflation is possible because of liquidity bots, but ratings inflation is possible because LP liquidity bots are not optimized. And so my first reaction isn't the rewards are too high at the highest levels, or that liquidity bots got to go. My first reaction is, can we dial in liquidity bots? And is there a meaningful conversation to be had at the highest level rewards? Let's have that. But first, like, let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. I go, let's really think about what's allowing someone to get to 7,500 or 7,800 RP 3 days into the season. It's not just luck. It's not just liquidity bots. It's not. It's also $500,000 worth of cards. It's also a very talented scholar or player. It's also, a willingness to, I would argue, see value where others don't, because they're, it's possible to just come in, tune on, and to play your games and then walk away. But they're like, wait a second, like, what's the math here? And like, oh, what's an energy cost? And we want players that are invested and involved. And so there's a real meaningful conversation there, Tails, and I appreciate you dropping that video. For me, the issue is really that the energy should be purchased with DC. Yeah. And not Glint. Liquidity bots at Champ 1 is probably a separate but related topic. Fair. And I think this argument, I almost have nothing to say about the idea. Like, nothing. I have no negative. I have no pushback toward the idea of energy being bought with DC. I kind of wonder why it's sold by Glint at all. And I don't say that out of critique to what you raise with Kezrin or the top league players. I just go, like, I thought Glint was for cards. Now, I know sometimes we get energy inside of chests. I think that should be it.